Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Jack W. Regan Live. I am Jack W. Regan, and tonight I'll be performing a selected portion from my new book, Tarragom. The entire audio version is available absolutely free from podiobooks.com, as well as through the official website, www.tarragom.com. That address should be displayed on your screen. Tonight, our goal is to not only entertain you, but to spread the word about this exciting new fantasy adventure series for kids. Tarragom is the first in the series, and the second book, Kingdom Heir, is due out December 1st of this year. As we join the story tonight, we find Ransom Hall under attack by the evil Fantors of Tarragom. Our main character, 13-year-old Max Ransom and newfound friend Regan, are taking shelter in the armory as the battle rages overhead. And now, Tarragom. The armory was a long, narrow, windowless room. Weapon racks, now mostly empty, lined the walls. Max and Regan entered and looked around. Lord Ransom had never allowed Max to play in the room when he was little, and the room had always held an element of mystery. Now, with the strange moaning sound and the occasional shudder of the floor, it was nothing short of creepy. What did my father mean by under attack? Max wondered aloud. During his 13 years, Ransom Hall had never faced an enemy. He had heard of battles being fought in other places, and even heard recent rumors about trouble, but had never seen warfare up close. Regan, who was much older than Max, did not share his curiosity.
"It's the Fantors!"
he said, his voice high-pitched with fright and frustration.
"Why tonight of all nights?"
Despite the circumstances, Max snickered. Are you seriously annoyed that you've been interrupted in your thievery? I'm personally more concerned about surviving until morning. He sat down next to Regan, who seemed on the verge of panic. Tell me more about these Fantors. Are they really dangerous?
Dangerous? They're the most evil creatures in Tarragom. Trust me, the less you know about them, the better.
But who are they? Where do they come from?
They live in the dark wood.
Regan was shaking, and he stood up and began pacing.
That's where their power is the strongest. But lately, they've been straying into the surrounding provinces, Grindale and Angelos, and causing mischief. I heard your father and Zohar talking in the study. A group of cutters was killed just a few days ago on the border of Grindale.
That's not far from here.
Exactly. This must be their next stop.
Regan's pacing quickened, and he felt for his knife. But why us?
For the love of Munster!
Regan stopped pacing for a brief moment.
Don't you read the history books? The Fantors were a part of the uprising that threatened to conquer Tarragom some years back. Your father played an important role in defeating them, mainly by bringing Grindale and Angelos together in a powerful alliance. There have been rumors that those responsible for the first uprising are up to their old tricks. Obviously, your father would have to be taken care of early to prevent him from rallying Tarragom's forces once again.
The floor trembled, and the few remaining weapons shook in the racks. Regan resumed his pacing, and, as the trembling increased, suddenly grabbed the bag of cheese and broke for the door.
"I refuse to die here!"
he shrieked.
"There may still be time to make it home before the castle falls!"
Regan! Max grabbed for the little man's jerkin, but the smooth leather slipped between his grasping fingers. He hesitated, and then started after his new friend. As an afterthought, he halted, and grabbed a sword and scabbard from the rack before heading out the door. The Mechkin was already halfway down the hall, and Max struggled to catch up, while at the same time buckling the sword around his waist. Outside the armory, Max could hear the noise of battle. The shouts of the soldiers, the strange moaning, and another sound he couldn't quite place. A hissing, crackling, whooshing sound, like the blaze of a fire when fresh fuel is added. Then Max heard a scream from somewhere above. In one of the towers, a soldier had been hit. But it wasn't the sudden scream of a man cut with a sword or pierced by an arrow. It started low and then increased in pitch and volume. Most horribly, it continued for several seconds before slowly dying out again in the same manner as it started. Max shuddered and continued after Regan, who had disappeared around a corner. Max turned the corner and stopped. There was no sign of the Mechkin, and the only way out from here was a flight of steps leading upward. toward the battle. Bracing himself and grabbing the hilt of the sword, Max ran up the steps, shouting Gramkin's name. A soldier appeared at the top of the stairs, causing Max to come to a screeching halt and almost sending him backward down the steps. "Young Ransom, what are you doing up here? Didn't your father instruct you to remain below?" Instead of waiting for an answer, the soldier grabbed Max's shoulder and turned him around. "Now get back to the armory and stay there. It's not safe." Max turned back around to ask the soldier if he'd seen Gramkin, but before he could speak, he heard the same crackling sound from earlier. A moment later, the man in front of him burst into blue flame. His face registered shock, and the same horrible scream ripped from his throat. Hearing the death was nothing compared with witnessing it. The soldier's armor melted around him, encasing his upper body in molten metal. His flesh liquefied, and then quickly turned to ash. Within seconds, all that remained was a twisted pile of melted armor and scattered ashes. Max stood on the steps, shocked and sickened. Then he became aware of something approaching him. Looking up, he saw a swirling dark mist. It was somewhat in the shape of a man, but without defined features. Like a phantom, its face was only a black smudge and appeared to be shadowed by a hood. It moved across the stone floor as smoothly and quietly as smoke. Max didn't have to be told. This was a Phantor. Even the atmosphere felt evil, and, although he couldn't see any facial features, Max knew the creature was leering. It was going to kill him.